like being a good employee, it sounds like it's bad, but it isn't, because that means you're providing value. That means you're helping the business. You're generating income for your family. So I don't think that employees should be looked at as a bad way.
How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Driven. In today's episode, we're going to be discussing why being an employee isn't such a bad thing. Yep. And I know nowadays, especially on social media, we see that a lot of people, they're like, I'm starting my business, like screw being an employee. I'm going to be living the good life, be my own boss, and start my own business. But, being on both sides, I worked a lot of jobs, you worked a lot of jobs, and now we have a business that we're doing together.
Yeah.
We've seen both sides, and one thing we realized is that actually being an employee isn't bad. Because there's cons and there's pros to being a business owner, and then there's pros and cons to being an employee. So with that, just to get into it, what would you say some of the benefits, or why isn't it such a bad thing just staying as an employee?
Well, I think the word and term employee, I think why it's perceived as bad is because of the people that are on social media saying, oh, you work a 9 to 5, you're an employee. It's kind of being looked down upon as if it's bad.
Yep.
But if we just go based on just the straight numbers, like just pay, like the average small business owners, we looked it up, and it's anywhere from $29,000 to $65,000 a year. That's the average. Meaning, yes, there are business owners that make more, but then there are also business owners that make less, make no money, or lose money. And so that's the average income of like a small business owner. The average income of just a salaried worker is $53,000 a year. And that's just working at a job, an employee.
Yep.
And so kind of like if we just compare the two, it's like, a business owner, what do you have to do? The accounting, the operations, the managing, dealing with employees, dealing with customers, probably like, people being absent. There's a lot of things. Just look at wherever you work or your business, the amount of problems, pretty much they have to deal with all of them. As opposed to an employee, they just have to get their work done, and that's pretty much it. And so if we just look at the money alone, on average, salaried people make more than a business owner does, a small business owner does. And so just starting off with that. I don't know if you wanted to add anything on that.
Yeah, real quick. I know you mentioned the average salary, which is 50-something, 55?
For an employee.
For an employee, right?
Yeah.
55. How much does a minimum wage worker in California? Because I know we're in California.
Yep.
Minimum wage went up for us, which is good for everyone else. But, as the small business owner, for a lot of small business owners, it may not be the best. But what would you say?
It's in LA, which we're in the LA County area. The minimum wage is $17 an hour, which if you equate that to a year, that's $35,000 a year.
And the thing is that as long as you show up, you clock in, you work, it's guaranteed.
Yep.
As opposed to the small business owner, you just by showing up, you're not guaranteed to make a sale.
Nope.
So I can see that there's a lot of benefits to staying as an employee.
Yeah, there's also that like safety, like that feeling of safety. So the average income is higher for an employee, but also knowing that you're going to get that paycheck, unless the business goes bank. But even then, I'm pretty sure there's like insurances or stuff like that will cover, or like somehow like it may be covered, but your wage is guaranteed.
Yeah.
As opposed to small business owners, they have to make it's not guaranteed.
Yep.
In order to make money, the business has to make money. So that's also a huge plus. Because even for us, when earlier this year, last year, like things were tough.
Yep.
And the thing is that I think probably if we just look at the numbers, the profit and loss and everything, the employees were making we weren't making money actually. We were losing money.
Yep.
Employees were getting paid guaranteed.
Yep.
In that situation, I feel like being in the employee's position would have been a lot better.
Yep. Because
we were actually losing money.
Yeah, and kind of going back to that, also not always thinking about the business. Because I know, like working as a worker, as an employee. Let's just say I work Monday through Friday, Saturday and Sunday. I'm just gonna do whatever I want. I'm not gonna think about work. I'm gonna party. I'm gonna spend time with my family. I'm gonna stay indoors, do whatever I want. The business owner, on the other hand, they're always thinking about the business. They're like, how can I make more sales? How can I, if I'm losing money, how can I stop losing money? How can I I have this problem, you know, this people problem, this person doesn't like the other person, like, man, how am I gonna have to deal with it? So I know as a business owner, you're pretty much always thinking about the business. And from our experience, I don't know if you're the same, but for myself, I'm always thinking of ways, like I'm watching a movie or, you know, I'm eating or something. I'm always thinking, I'm like, oh, damn, I have an idea. Or it always comes up.
Yeah, pretty much your life revolves around the business.
Yeah.
And as opposed to employee, because even like working on Friday next to some individuals, I heard this phrase like, oh, I have weekend brain. Like I have a weekend brain, because you know they were kind of like losing a little bit of focus or like just blanking out. And then I remember specifically that was like, oh, I'm sorry, I have a weekend brain. I'm like, okay, like and so to myself I thought, I mean that must be good. That's great actually, because I know not everyone is the same. Not everyone is not, you know, is not the same. And so, but you know, it's kind of it's not a privilege, because that's the thing. We chose this, and so it's not a privilege. It isn't. We chose this, and so you make your own decisions. And but I heard that, and you know that's a great thing. I think if you're not really like, your life isn't about work or business or anything like that, then you definitely, you know, have that choice and freedom to, you know, be an employee. And it's not bad. Guaranteed income, more on average, more income. It's not bad.
Yeah, and I think one thing with that, being an employee doesn't mean you're going to be stuck at a certain wage. Because if you just build up your skills, you add more value to the company, and you know, you let your intentions be known to the owners or to your managers or to whatnot. Building up your skills and whatnot, you could get paid more than a lot of small business owners.
No, definitely, I agree. Like even within the employee, there's mobility, and like how you mentioned before, it's that it kind of really does depend who you work for or with. It really does depend, but in general, like if you provide value to the company you work for, you will tend to get paid more. And if you don't, then I would really suggest looking for another company. And I mean, it was gonna go on a tangent, but talking about, I would prefer working at a small business, because there's a lot more that you could do, a lot more value that you could provide, as opposed to a large corporation where you pretty much just have, you know, one thing to do, and there it's really more politics, who, you know, like to work yourself up. So in a small business, you know, there's a lot more that you could provide, a lot more that you can learn. And so you know, that's just my take on, you know, if I were to be an employee, where I would work. Granted, at the beginning it might be like less pay, but through time, through the value that you provide, the wage just only goes up. You know, as we've seen with, you know, in our situation, or like some of the employees that we have, they've been here for a while, and the amount of value that they're providing is just like, it's not, in a way, like we're kind of forced to pay them more because of the value that they provide. And so that's just my take on. I mean, that's just my take on if I were to work for a company.
No, I definitely agree. And one thing I do want to add, because I know we're talking about being an employee isn't such a bad thing. Looking at it from an outside perspective, well, I mean, you say that being an employee isn't bad, but you guys have businesses. So why did we become business owners instead of, you know, just staying as an employee?
I feel like there was a few things. One of them was ignorance. We did not know the amount of work that it would take to run a small business or a business in general. And so that's, you know, going in blindly, like, yeah, like it doesn't really seem daunting, because the amount of work, and that's the thing. It is going to be a lot of work. There's no way around it. But because we didn't know how much it was going to take to run a business, I think that's why we just went, you know, let's start a business. It sounds cool. But granted, you know, we had a reason why we wanted to make more money, but because of the lack of like just not knowing. And then I know you also had another one.
No, definitely. For myself, I think one of the reasons why is because I didn't like taking orders.
Right.
Because I remember working at the Superior, and I used to push the carts, the carritos. And I remember one time during Thanksgiving, there was a rush of people. And so like where they didn't have the carts. And so I remember the manager, like he was telling me, hey, you gotta step it up. You gotta continue putting in the carts. And I remember I told them, I mean, if you think it's so easy, why don't you do it? And so like it goes back to like, I personally didn't like it. I know maybe it was bad on my end for me to say that, but it was just the frustration of like, man, I'm doing my part. Like, even though it's so simple, I'm doing my part, but this person is now recognizing me because he's doing other stuff. And so, yeah, it's just like it stemmed from that, like not that specific, but it stemmed from me not wanting to take orders.
No, yeah, and definitely in general, I think that a lot of business owners tend to be that way. That's why they do start a business. Like for me, it was similar. Like there's been countless. I've gotten fired. I would consider myself an asset and a value to the company, but I think it's because of it wasn't the discipline, but more I think the not listening to authority, but it was a little bit different. But yeah, not like even there was a lot of things like I felt like I could have done so many things, but it's just because I was kind of like just I didn't want to not there's a lot. Yeah, I guess to sum it all up, I had a lot of jobs within a few weeks, actually, like 3 jobs within 2 weeks, and it's just like listening to orders, and not just because I didn't want to listen to orders, because obviously if like I received orders, if we were in the military, if we received it from someone that deserved to to listen to, then yes. But it's just like that part of that was taking orders from someone that I didn't believe was doing the right thing per se, or going in the right direction, and I felt like I wanted to do it kind of like, or at least I wanted to do like provide value, but do it in the way that I thought was best, and I wasn't allowed. That kind of also just frustrated me, and just pushed me over, like leaving.
Yeah, and I think that's because we didn't have good leadership.
Yep.
And we were held down because they wanted to keep some control that they didn't allow us to do the things we wanted to.
Yep.
But also on that, I think it stems from 2 things. Maybe we're just wired like that, because I know we grew up competing with each other, like friendly in sports. So I guess it just translated over to the rest of our life. And then also, I think it also stems on what we really want. Because I know we wanted something more for ourselves to provide for our parents, and that led to business was one of the routes we saw that had the biggest potential, regardless of the risk. So yeah, but going back to it, is there any final thoughts, or is there anything else of why you think being an employee isn't such a bad idea?
No, I think we might pretty much just mentioned that on average, employees make more than the average small business owner. There's a lot less risk. Like you pretty much have no risk unless you're let go or you're fired. Then yes, but there's a lot less risk. The business doesn't consume you. You're working for someone. So once you clock up, at that point, maybe then, I mean, if you want to add more value, yes, think about the business and around the clock. But you don't have to. That's the thing. So there's a lot of benefits to being an employee. Granted, the upside of having a successful business and being a small successful business owner is the income, yes. But then also, like, you don't have to go through that when when times are tough. You don't have to feel that or experience that. And so there is a lot of benefits to being a good, let's say, employee. And employee, I think it has a bad connotation. Even right now, saying a bad employee or being a good employee, it sounds like it's bad, but it isn't, because that means you're providing value. That means you're helping the business. You're generating income for your family. So I don't think that employee should be looked at as a bad way or a bad term. Being a good employee, like, I guess also, like, from high school, oh, you're a good student, like it's like it's perceived as bad. Why? According to who? Based on what metrics? It's like you decide what you want to be. So, like, yeah, just be a good employee. And I know it's probably all the business owners, so they want good employees. But if I wasn't in this position, I was employee, I would want to be a good employee, because that means that more value I'm providing, I'm gonna get more money. And if I don't, I'll work at somewhere else where I do provide value and they earn more money. So it shouldn't be looked at as bad. And just there's a lot of benefits. But if you are that type of individual that is risk tolerant, like you can tolerate risk, and don't like following directions for whatever reason, because if it's just I don't want to listen because that's not a good that's not a good one. So yeah, if you tend to be like that, and you're driven, disciplined, hardworking, then yeah, definitely the business owner route might be the best route. But being an employee isn't bad. We've been there. It isn't bad.
Just going back on what you said, it's just don't let other people's opinions or their own beliefs influence you. I know you mentioned in the beginning, right now, like being an employee has a bad connotation because a lot of influencers, a lot of people starting their own stuff. They're like, man, I quit that 9 to 5 to work for myself. I quit that 9 to 5 to have more free time. But what they don't understand, or what they later find out, is that as a business owner, you had to work in the beginning, you had to work more as opposed to like when you used to be an employee. So definitely, like, don't let other people's opinions of being a worker, an employee within a company, just cloud your judgment.
Yeah, and so just do what's best for you based on your personality, on your traits. Do what's best for you, and pretty much don't be influenced by others. It's like the summary, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was pretty much it. Those are our thoughts on, being an employee isn't that bad. If you have any questions or comments, or you have any input on what we mentioned today, please feel free to put it down in the comments down below. And this was another episode of Driven. My name is Juan.
My name is Alexis.
And we'll see you on the next one.